People, this is not going to be a very long live stream. I have slept some earlier, but not very long, and I'll need to get a good full sleep before I take more Adderall. Basically, it's like I took 2 days worth of Adderall yesterday. I don't take any of it today. So the point is, I don't have the endurance for another 9 hour stream or something right now. And I kind of went back and forth a little bit between just making a long form video, musing kind of video to upload, but decided I'd probably rather just live stream my thoughts. So I've been reflecting a lot about the stuff that happened yesterday before, where first I made that, first I responded to somebody's comment about Jordan Peterson maybe being an ISFJ, and then I got a comment on that video, this very long comment that I guess was, I don't know if you call it triggering or what, but it catalyzed me into actually making a response video. And I did. And then he put up, hi Winston's mom. Then he put up another comment on the new video. Regardless, I've been reflecting on a little bit is how, like, how two people could hardly misunderstand each other worse than me and that guy, right? We clearly do not, we're not making good predictions about each other at all, you know? Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm kind of tore up a little bit. I did get a little sleep earlier, but if I'm seeming a little contemplative, it's just because I'm I'm working towards an SI reset here, getting a good night's sleep and trying to make up some of my sleep deficit that I've already incurred at the beginning of this bottle of Adderall, etc. And but to the extent that I look a little rough in some other sense, it may be because I've just been watching Naked and Afraid, and I just watched a very emotional episode. Most of the episodes of Naked and Afraid are very emotional, and when I'm subpar in terms of my SI maintenance, like I am now, then my emotions get extra volatile. So it's a very tear-filled experience watching Naked and Afraid. I should watch Afraid and Naked. Well, I I like Naked and Afraid, but it can be a very intense show, and it does make me cry a lot because these people are going through the super intense experience, and they're having strong, you know, it's evoking from them or drawing out of them in some fashion a lot of tears and meow meow. And I can see on those shows how lack of sleep causes those people to get more emotionally volatile as well as it does me. But thinking about the whole thing just kind of makes me think about our precious subjectivities, which are really the most important things in life. They're the least important things in argumentation, but they're the most important things in life. And so what that guy was doing yesterday in his comment, I imagine he views it as he's trying to respect my subjectivities. But instead, I'm interpreting it as just insulting me and almost apparently intentionally wasting my time and energy, right? Like when he's trying to anticipate how his comment is going to produce this or that emotion in me. I don't want to be unnaked and afraid. I definitely don't. No, I don't want to pray for Palestine. I'm so tired of your Palestine shit. Just knock it off, everybody. I don't want to pray for Israel either, so just knock it off. Anyway, like that kind of thing annoys me, right? So, right, I tend to think, Elaine, that's my emotional or subjective, I guess, intuitive response to it is to say, this has got to be a a poorly veiled attempt to just annoy me, right? Because I can't conceive of anything that could be more annoying than that comment, in which he purports at the outset to have a point that he's going to make and substantiate, and instead spends the whole time trying to shepherd me and my emotions, as though if he got me emotionally on board with him, that somehow I would be receptive in a way that I wouldn't otherwise. So we can, okay, yeah, shut the fuck up. Okay. It's not my problem. That's what you don't seem to understand. There are a lot of places in the world where we could care a lot, right? Why aren't you up here talking shit about North Korea? They have an entire slave state. Their population is in much worse shape than the Palestinians. So shut the fuck up, dumbass. Um. Anyway, what was I saying before dumbass annoyed me? Oh, right. So what I want to know is, first of all, number one, I'm going to say I actually believe it's the case, but I could be wrong. I mean, I believe I'm leaning this way. You know, if I had to choose, I'd lean this way. But um, that he wasn't trying to annoy me. He was genuinely trying to engage with me in a way that he thought was going to be effective. The thing is, the irony of it is, of course, in attempting to manage my subjectivities with his comment, unless he was trying to piss me off or just annoy me, uh, like is that even, what didn't even really exactly anger is the wrong term for it. It's just like, oh, like what is this? I guess it's anger. I don't know what I felt, but the thing is, I'm not good with my subjectivities, such that I didn't even realize that I was. I didn't even. It never occurred to me as to like, why am I making this video? What's even the point of this video? It didn't have a thesis. My video didn't have any thesis. In fact, it starts with me saying I don't have a thesis here, but then I blame it on him, right? So while he's claiming in this comment that I'm dragged around by my emotions, or implying it, right? And that he's going to help me be less dragged around by my emotions with his condescending nonsense. He's both demonstrating his inability to drag me around as he wants to, and also I'm demonstrating his point that I'm totally being dragged around by my emotions. Not argumentationally, which is what I typically think it matters, but in terms of my behavior or action, what I choose to make or not make, absolutely. I'm not sure if I, that's why I'm making this live stream now. I don't quite know what to make of it, because then after I made my video, I was shocked to discover that he left another super long comment, that began with, "So you want more arguments, huh?" Which means he didn't seem to get the idea that my critique of his previous comment was not an invitation to address the problems I had highlighted, right? It was my attempt to say, this is what makes typology unbearable. I didn't read it. I didn't read it. And the reason I didn't read it was because I didn't want to be made mad again, The thing is, did he get under my skin? Well, like I said, his comment catalyzed my response. The other thing to note is that it's an incredibly good video I made, despite the fact that it has no thesis. I rewatched it this morning, and I was just like, damn, that is snappy as F. But also, then I recall from the stream last night, somebody was in here and asked me, were you mogging that guy? I had to Google the term, but it basically means like juxtaposing your own. It I guess originates in the idea of looks maxing. Basically, trying to clown somebody to make yourself look better or something. It was kind of better than the first comment, but still. I mean, the point, I guess, if I had a point in that video that I made, it was, if you do this, you've lost all my respect, and I'll never look at another thing you ever write. Because after all, you were, from my perspective, incredibly insulting in your attempt to shepherd my feelings as though you could somehow get me to not deal with what you're saying objectively. No matter how much you try to shepherd my feelings, I will be dealing with the actualities of what you say when you say something actual. However, if you prove to me so scoundrelly as to write that first comment, do not expect me to give you a whiff of puss, right? Not a whisper, my puss shall you get. On the other hand, I'm sure that's not what he intended, right? And the other thing is, then he came to the live stream and super chatted $20. He clearly does not understand me if he thinks that's going to motivate me to read his fucking thing. It's not, obviously. I'm not his whore, and I'm not his bitch. And his comment, from my perspective, seemed to believe I was his bitch. With his super chat, from my perspective, he seemed to believe I was his whore. I don't think that's what he wanted to make me perceive. I can't refund super chats and don't want to. Consider it a penalty for his crime. How about that? He paid his ticket. It's not like YouTube gives me control over that shit. YouTube takes half of every super chat. So the thing is, I don't believe I was mogging him, but I'm not. But that made me. After somebody asked me that question, I said, "Oh no," But then made me think, well, why? What was I doing? What exactly was I doing there? It wasn't until I said it a little while ago. Maybe that's what I was trying to do. Like say, you, I, I hereby erase you from existence in my mind. You shall no longer be guilty of using letters and ways to form words. When I see a block of text from you, I'm just gonna transform it into that fake Latin shit they use at WordPress. Ipsum lorem or whatever it's called. Oh, it is off. Well, how long have you been off for air conditioning? But I don't think that's really what I intended to convey either. I guess what I intended to convey is this is why we can't have nice things. Here's Johnny. How did my comment disappear? I didn't remove any comments. I mean, it's plausible that you super chat $100 and that I dance. But if you say, if I super chat $100, will you do the dance I want you to do? I will tell you no. The best I can offer you is super chat me the $100 and I'll allow that to weigh slightly in your favor in my decision making. But you know, I'm not going to force myself. As always, I don't have my glasses, you know. Every single time I come out here with my phone, I both need and don't have them. I nevertheless refuse to learn anything. It's as big as the great blue sky, as big as my heart. Anyway, I didn't delete any comments, so if your comment disappeared, that wasn't my decision. I don't know how that happened. It is kind of hot, but not that hot actually. It's cool inside the house. It says on the computer it's 97 degrees outside, but I've not had the air conditioning on since yesterday evening or something, and it's 70 degrees inside the house. It doesn't feel like it's 97 outside. So I don't believe that. I think that's telling me the temperature more like at the Jersey Ranger Station or something. It's a little cooler up here. YouTube banning words? Yeah, that does happen. CVS Pharmacy? Why are you texting me? You are persona non grata, CVS Pharmacy. Your C stands for constantly. Your V stands for very, and your S stands for shitty. So get out of here, CVS. And your constant very shittiness. All right, time to water the plants. Mogging. Is there a good synonym for mogging besides logging? I mean, you know, like, is clowning a synonym for mogging? These Alpha, Generation Alpha people, or Generation Z maybe, they keep making up new words. Hi, Siberian. Let me guess. Do you live in Siberia? Oh, yeah, it is true that you got to check to make sure you're on the all messages rather than the uh, top messages. They no longer call it live chat and top chat. They call it all messages and top messages, which is a better name for it. Tomorrow will be a better day. Yeah, you're supposed to have guys come clean out your gutters today and they still haven't shown up. And you got a bad haircut. Well, you know what? Just get yourself a pair of clippers and go G.I. Jane it, you know? Just all the way down to the skin and then start over from scratch. That's what I recommend. It's good to get a fresh start. I don't have them anymore. Yeah, well, um, it's true that YouTube is pretty sophisticated and sometimes a little Karen-y in its community guideline stuff. But, and there are some perfectly innocent enough things that seem to get removed from the chat because AI's system isn't perfect, you know. But there's a decent chance also that if you're saying stuff that YouTube auto deletes, that it's probably stuff that I would by hand delete anyway. So logging equals asserting dominance. Okay. Well, I don't think I was asserting dominance because, like, to me, I didn't even look at the commenter's name, or it didn't seem, it was sort of like, here's an example of this kind of bullshit. Well, Siberian, NI to TI, it's just a matter of saying, if you have an observation that's not reducible, in other words, it relies on some holistic thing. Like, I understand how this engine moves the car forward. And I go, well, then what is it? Is it the spark plugs that move it forward? Is it the gas pedal? What? And then you have to say, like, it's not that kind of system. It's a holistic dynamic system that's irreducible. So you can only actually get some meanings from this, and we must acknowledge that other meanings we cannot infer from it because of its holism, you know. You're not going to be able to parse this out in full, and it's not going to be deductively testable, but that doesn't mean it's not an objective understanding of things, and perhaps there's a way to get to deductivity here. I'm not sure. There probably isn't. It takes TI people a while to learn that not not all things that aren't TI are subjective. NI is not subjective, but it's also not TI. It's a knowing thing rather than a deciding thing. However, it's the proper teammate of TI. Although SI is useful for providing examples, NI and TI share an objective frame, and are companionable against one another, with one another. I would say number one thing, don't do what that guy did in his dumbass comment. Don't try to manage the TI user's emotions. Well, you know who else is from New York, Siberian? My wife. Where in New York? Long Island. But she doesn't live there anymore.
No, I live here.
She lives here in California with me. Why? Because I stole New York's best citizen.
Oh, thanks.
Eric, it's okay to be wrong. We know the truth. I'm not sure what you mean by that. When we don't get each other, we just break up. I don't know what Jeremiah is talking about either. But what was I going to say? Oh, so yeah, it's the case that this guy and I clearly our expectations. Now I could be wrong about him. You know, maybe this was all an attempt to get me to be reactive, and he hit it at the right moment because I happen to be super freaking thwacked. I do not know how I got so thwacked yesterday. I haven't been that thwacked in a long time. I guess I took 4 of them, which is like 2 days worth, but you know, I didn't take any today. And I was just gacked out of my head, man. I made multiple things in a row throughout the day and then live stream for 9 hours.
Yeah.
And I was just like, whap, 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 whap. To quote Kendrick Lamar. When we don't get each other, we just break up. But so it was striking to me like, okay, wow, this guy and I have both got to just be like, unless again, I could be wrong about him, but it both got to be on some level, how the fuck did that happen? Because it's like, he left that dumbass comment, which I consider dumbass, but I don't think he expected it to be, yeah. Do you sucker puff? I don't know. Will you please not spam? Okay? You don't need to spam any longer, any further. Is it maybe an FE type of persuasion? I know some ENFJs in my life do that kind of, you should be more open-minded kind of argument instead of an actual argument. Well, what it felt like to me was an attempt to detach me from my black and white thinking. In other words, it felt a lot like FI Tool, but the writing was in some ways good, right? It was bad FE in that he clearly, unless he was being a undercover troll successfully, he clearly didn't expect me to respond the way I responded to his attempts to manage my emotions. So maybe ENFP. I don't know, but assuming he was not being completely disingenuous, then what we can say about this is his FE predictions, namely his prediction of how this was going to play with me, was wildly off base. And then my prediction of how my video was going to play with him was wildly off base. Because I was not trying to encourage him to produce now the arguments that he had failed to produce in his first co- comment because, I'm a debate coach. I'm accustomed to there being that you have to read your case in the time allotted. Once I've totally thrashed and dismantled your wasted AF time, you severance applies. You can't then just sever your previous case and make a new one. He did trigger. Well, he certainly he was the catalyst for my response. It's odd to say that he triggered me because I don't feel like I don't feel yanked around by him. I feel like we are so fundamentally on different pages that we were both surprised by our respective reactions to the other person. Hi, Alexis Kingsley. So the thing is, the reason I'm not super thrilled with he triggered me is because rewatched that video in which I addressed his comment this morning, and I thought it was a fantastic video. It's like I was really on, like just bam, bam, going through the thing. It was entertaining to watch. I watched the whole thing through again, didn't get tired of it at all. Okay, well, I mean, if it was an actual attempt to coddle, then it was extremely undeveloped FE. If you looked simply at their anticipated response by me and my actual response being about as far apart as they could possibly be. And if he wasn't trying to annoy me, then he has a very poor sense of how his condescension is going to play.
It's,
That's not.
it could be ENFP because, like, it sort of reminds me of Jonathan Basanti, like, making comments to me. And, like, the way that it played out, too. Like, he was lacking FE because I think he's an INTJ, but, like, he was trying to point things out, but it was so, like, attacky. I don't know. It reminds me of that. It reminds me of, like...
Well, I mean, in this instance, this guy was not trying to tell me hard truths or something. He was trying to help me navigate this emotional minefield. So
Hey, William.
it's okay regardless, Jeremiah thinks. It's interesting because it's revelatory about just how differently two people can think about and approach life. Um, if you don't, there was also something very countervalued in that comment, right? If you don't want the answer to be determinate, then you're seeking openness from people. In other words, they can just sort of grok your metaphors and get where you're coming from. Uh, so it certainly is conceivable that he's just projecting his frame, which suggests to him that I'm held back by a lack of openness because that's the best way for him to be ontologically comfortable with his own relationship with cognitive functions. If, in fact, he can continue to explore and add on to different interpretations and ideas within socionics and Model A and Model G and Model and different dimensions and all the myriad other, distinctions that aren't the specifics of which are not articulated adequately or correctly, and think that that's what you're supposed to be doing with this explanation, then that's very countervalued in I. Of course, you can't be both ENFP and six slot in I. I'm not saying he's two different types or something. I'm just saying these are things I noted about the his approach towards stuff. That number one, openness is more important than rigor. And number two, that openness is predicated on emotional willingness, not on it is my openness is predicated on my emotional readiness, not on your argumentational readiness, which is about as far apart as we can get position wise. And I guess it also is revelatory of the fact that I have definitely some attachment to, that I am authentically, subjectively bothered by misinformation, disinformation, and the shitstorm of idiocy that comprises almost all of typology. It's frustrating, right? The I'm both demonstrating and providing it done correctly. So to not only not have that valuable resource appreciated, but to have it actively rejected in favor of worthless bullshit is obviously frustrating. It's like, here, I have something real here that you can use. It's an actual tool. We don't want these actual hammers and screwdrivers and stuff. We're playing with these plastic hammers and screwdrivers over here, pretending to hammer and screw things. I'm not trying to make a friend, Jeremiah Fix. I am providing the truth. I'm giving the correct explanation. I don't want to do your work for you. I don't know how to make you want to be correct. And that's not my job, right? It's like, if you're more likely to understand my correctness if I'm being friendly about it, then you're totally unlikely to understand my correctness at all. I mean, I get it. No one wants to learn a lesson from a smug asswipe, right? I get that, sure. But, I mean, and there are instances when I can be very off-putting. At the same time, if you're in any way close to my attitudes, values, and stuff, then you can see immediately, you can see right away how infuriating that comment was, because you'll understand that. I mean, if you care about relevance, then you too were appalled by that comment. But another huge notable difference between the two of us is that's at least as important as any abstract value is the sort of applied value. I spent my video time, my commentary time, directly responding to everything that he said. He spent his commentary time never referencing anything I said, except that I thought Peterson was probably an ENTJ. People seem to think that because Jordan Peterson displays a lot of emotions, that he's probably an ENFJ. I don't think his FE is very good myself, but it's possible. You know, none of us have typed the guy. Taha says, as an ENFP, I find projecting emotion onto me or implying my arguments are based on emotion is extremely insulting. Oh, is Cone Man here? Hey, Cone Man. Um, Jeremiah Fix, you're providing another great example of somebody who's wildly misunderstanding me and what's happening. I am interested in this topic a great deal because, you know, I was super gacked out yesterday. The whole day kind of happened, and then I was like, whoa, what was that? But regardless, I think it's revelatory, extremely revelatory about how two people can, because they don't have the same values, cognitive function stacks and stuff, can can totally mispredict how their thing's gonna land in almost comically wrong ways, you know? You think that because I'm interested in this, that I'm bent out of shape about it. That's You need to distinguish between things that are ideas and things that are expressions of an emotion. So yesterday was an expression of an emotion in that video mostly, which is probably why it was such a good video. Because I didn't make a lot of points except for the fact that this guy is full of shit, right? It isn't saying anything. This right now is engaging the ideas analytically. You've probably gotten your understanding of those two things backwards here. I think you possibly think that video was analytical and this is emotional. It's the other way around. Because in this video, I'm saying a lot of stuff that means stuff, right? I mean, in this live stream. Whereas in that video, all I did was basically read his shit and express my dismay at it and articulate, you know, how he failed to say anything that was relevant to anything and annoyed the shit out of me in the process, you know? No, I don't ascribe to the concept of loops. I went on TikTok for a bit. I don't have TikTok on my phone, but I have looked at it sometimes on a couple of occasions on the laptop here. I don't like its layout. Seems like it's just a bunch of squares. Oh no, I don't feel responsible to disprove him. I mean, obviously, I wasn't even trying to disprove him. I wasn't even arguing against his claim that Jordan Peterson was an INFJ. I was just pointing out that this comment could not be more perfect an example of why typology is a shitstorm. You know, people use their first function the most, second most, goes down in descending order. No. I think with the conscious functions, well, I mean, it's not the case that functions are exclusive in their use. Like there are some functions where I can do mya and mya at the same time. I can talk and walk at the same time. SENE at the same time. Okay. There are other things that you cannot do at the same time. I cannot read and talk at the same time. Even though, in theory, there's travel lanes available, right? my talking is putting information out, presumably my incoming lane is free. There's nothing else occupying it. But in fact, it doesn't work like that. Uh, they're doing fewer drugs these days than when. I mean, I regularly do 2 different drugs right now. I maybe regularly did 3 potentially when you were engaging with me. But a better question would be, is Eric more wrong now than he was then? No. If anything, even less wrong. Although there wasn't much room to improve. So you had to watch 4 ads to get to this stream. Wow. This is a very valuable live stream. It's worth 4 ads worth of your time just to be able to come and listen to me, you know, getting me out about mudities. Pontificate, hold court, carry on. Muse, discuss, commune, play tiddlywinks, no, patty cakes. Why do you think Jordan Peterson is a TE user? I don't know. I think it was actually Kingsley here who made a very good case for ENFJ that had me rather convinced yesterday. Was that you, Kingsley, who did that? I am very willing to entertain the idea that a better case can be made for ENFJ. The thing is, I indicated in that original video that prompted that guy's comment, ENTJ or ENFJ. I said probably ENTJ, maybe ENFJ. So the thing is, of course, like the thing about that comment also, I guess, that made me so irritated is it just drives home how much, in order to talk to just about anybody about this stuff, I have to first hold a remedial class for them. So this guy says in the comment, Rachel's probably an ISFJ, not an INFJ. So what in the world is this person looking at to determine SI or NI? He clearly has no practical linkage that he can hang any hat on, right? Like, this kind of thing links in a better than correlative way, in a determinate kind of a way, with this exercise of this function, you know? Well, whoever quoted, no, this is one of the things that convinced me a lot was, I think it was Alexis Kingsley. Um, was his rules for life are actually a bunch of non-ordinated kind of principles for maintaining emotional well-being in one's life. When she made the case, that was you, right, Alexis? Um, I was like, all right, I don't have a great rebuttal for that at all, and it's as convincing an argument as I've heard. I mean, Alexis did what anybody should do if they're trying to convince anybody of anything, right? Come with quotes and shit. Like, Jordan Peterson said these things. These things make me think that these values it seems to line up a lot better with NIFE than NITE, or, the extrovert functions first. But I agree. So, in fact, I forgot that I had already agreed But I'm changing my typing to probably ENFJ, maybe ENTJ. And why? Because that's what I do when I hear a better argument than the one I have. I just cop it. When I get confronted with a pocket full of horse piss, like that guy's comment, then I am not convinced, obviously, and I am stunned that this person thinks somehow that this comment is a good idea. Like, I don't know what he's trying to accomplish there, but unless he's trying to accomplish demonstrating pointlessness and annoying Eric, then what in the world is he thinking? If he wants to convince me, it doesn't take a shit ton of words. Alexis did it in like one block of quotes and two chats of argumentation because her words actually said something. That's not why I'm convinced he's an ENFJ, Eureka TV. Okay. I'm a very emotional person. I'm very much emoting a lot. Before I started streaming, I was crying, watching episodes of Naked and Afraid, just sitting here, tears streaming down my face, saying, "Oh, you're such good people." Oh, that was a joke. But you know what? Don't play jokes on me, Eureka TV. I don't like being joked about. You're hurting my feelings. And what's the most precious thing I have? It's my feelings. And that's also the truth, though. It's like, I love watching Naked and Afraid and having it make me cry and feeling all those wonderful feelings. And I also despise the bad feelings of like guilt and shame over past sins or whatever. Um, it is undeniably the case that my subjectivities, everyone's subjectivities on some level, are the most important things. But just because they're the most important things doesn't mean they have to be sat at the front of every event. And explanation is a land where subjectivities just need to stay as far away as possible. I don't think I would call third slot functions fragile. I think I'd call them the line you won't cross, you know? So if mine makes everybody think negatively of me, or, you know, then I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board. But I think it's best understood as that. Probably a little too anti-fragile. In other words, I'm less aware of my FE. I fail more on FE grounds than I think. I'm blithely ignorant in that regard, in some sense. But when I do fail badly, obviously it hurts a lot when you fail in your third slot function. You like my hat today, thanks. My opinion is that ENFJ will have a tendency for FESE because their extroversion pulls them away from NI and vice versa for INFJ being pulled toward to TI, especially in individuals. I don't think we need a because there. We can just say that FE and SE are absolute values. FI and SI are absolute values that are unconscious. And NI is an instrumental value. So even though it's their tool function and it's a critical tool they use at their job all day, every day, it's also not implicitly a value to them. And the reason it's got to be like that, I guess, we want it because is that to be a dominant function and to be a primary absolute value means the corresponding necessitated complementary function, it must be instrumental because that's how much room there is in that box, you know? It's probably the best explanation of it. ENFJs are called hamlets because they're small Austrian villages. I don't think that's very nice of you to call ENFJs small Austrian villages. I mean, yeah, they might be socially active, but it doesn't make them an entire village unto themselves. Oh, my lasagna, I forgot about it. I need to eat that. That'll help me to regain some SI immunities because it is the case that one way to replenish yourself when you're feeling kind of tore up is to just make sure you attend to all your SI shit. Eat, drink some fluid, get some sleep. It's the first time I've ever cooked one of these Italian meals in the actual oven. I've always microwaved them before, but today I thought I'd take a chance on me and microwave it. Rachel's taking a chance on some chili, it looks like. I was talking about climate change being the same as everything a while back. His explanation of what that meant made zero sense to me, but perhaps I just missed the brilliance. You're saying that Jordan Peterson said climate change is the same as everything? I mean, I don't know what that's supposed to mean. That seems an awfully useless response to the topic. I mean, I've never been impressed with his intellect particularly, but there are times when he's not wrong, and times when he is. Well, Elaine, I find there's a big difference between what kind of crying I'm doing. If I'm crying because of my own sadnesses and stuff, which is very, very rare, that kind of FI, bad FI, makes me exhausted, puts me right to sleep. However, if I'm sympathetic crying, or if I'm crying at, oh my God, that's so beautiful. They tried so hard, it was so hard for them, and then they finally made it to the end of Naked and Afraid. That kind of crying doesn't make me tired, but it does make me feel refreshed, like after a fresh rain, you know? Right. That Diamond puts it a little bit more succinctly than I. I like crying when I'm not crying over something that's hurt me or somebody else, really. No, you make an excellent point. If Jordan Peterson were really to eat on, he wouldn't say, clean your room, dammit. He'd say, I'm going to make this real practical for you. You're going to get your goal diary and you're going to put at the top of page 1, priority 1. We're going to start with something simple, okay? So put a single bullet point, clean room. I want you to do that today. When that is done, just don't even think about it for the rest of the day. You've done all you need to do. That's it. With this simple set of goal-coordinated plans, I will turn your life into the winning proposition that my life is. Alexis, have you heard about my amazing new self-help organization? Got an easy to remember acronym. Goals. Okay? Goals. G. Goals. O. Only goals. A. All goals. L. Love goals. S. Seriously, goals. And what we preach here at Goals is that you can live your dream life now as long as you become a TE planning freak. Isn't that really your dream life? Hasn't it always been your dream life? Wouldn't you like to be a TE dom like me, telling people about goals? I mean, I would call that explanation theater, frankly, but you call it what you want. I can't remember ever having anything explained to me by Jordan Peterson such that I felt after having listened to him that I understood anything better. Most of the time it's because he's not saying anything that I've either not heard before, don't already have a better position on, or don't already understand why he's wrong. But also because I come to understand that a good explanation is just as elusive and precious a mystic creature than a brilliant song. It requires the same thing, ultimately. N-I. Because your explanation, I have no problem with the explaining the details parts if I understand the thing I'm explaining in details. But to have mastery of the zoom levels such that you can explain this at the topmost level and sort of present the architecture from above, have that architecture remain clear in the mind's eye / conceptual eye of the reader or whatever, while concurrently then breaking down each of those little nubs, having all of them follow naturally from each other and link in a real way back to the thesis such that it's an unfolding, it's a perfectly unfolding, fold up, back upable conceptual work. That is very, very difficult to do. And, you know, I'm not saying this because I'm saying like I'm always doing it. I'm almost never doing it. My explanations are inadequate because it's very tricky to strike the right balance between what Einstein said, as simple as possible and no simpler. But it's more than that. It's, you need to have a very deft sense of like what the core heart of this bit of concept you're explaining is, how much of the like ancillary surrounding impacted stuff you need to fill people in on for them to get the whole picture, and at what point more detail prevents them from getting the whole picture. Because you can't help people to get the whole picture in a meaningful way that genuinely results in and the kind of understanding that's beneficial rather than harmful. Like, if you're understanding cognitive functions incorrectly, that understanding is harmful to you and the rest of the world. Because unless you never speak about it at all, if you never speak about it at all to anybody, then it might not be harmful to you. Probably isn't. And it's definitely not harmful to the rest of the world. Because the harms to you don't come from you being wrong, except insofar as you're going to be engaging other people with ideas that are wrong, causing one of a couple of possible things to happen. Either, I mean, it's never good for any relationship when misinformation makes an already elusive clarity about one another even more impossible to attain. Rachel, you got something in the microwave beeping.
No, I didn't put anything in.
Oh, that was me. I did it again. That's my coffee. Do you hear that, Rachel? Your thing's dying off. What are you doing? Got it already. Did you forget about that thing you made already? No, Eric, that's you. You're the one who forgot about that thing. You know, it's like, it's also the case that for each medium in which the explanation is presented, there's a unique set of challenges. So if you're presenting it in text, like in a Google Doc, one set of challenges. If you're presenting it in a video, it's another set of challenges. I do still do live songs on the guitar, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that today. In part because I didn't really seem to enjoy it yesterday, which is not a good reason. Ew, boys. Oh no, it says ew, bye. Sorry. I thought it said ew, boys. I liked ew, boys better than ew, boy. Bye. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of videos, but I'm not sure which one to get to. It's like the details about the functions that I have are, they're not going to be very adjective filled, right? I mean, it's going to be stuff that says these are knowledge functions. This is what that means in terms of information flow. You know, this one is experiential, which means it's high resolution data. This one's, so it depends what you're looking for in terms of information. I do have more than one, I'm sure, video where I try to nutshell the big concepts, like kinds of functions, information flows, fields that attention is paid on, absolute and instrumental value, like slot realities, like, first of all, what slots represent, which is the way in which the dominant function and its necessary complementary kind of function in their respective places, 1 and 2, that we use those other slot ideas, slot names and stuff, to explain how our relationship with our first and second function limit and to some extent define other qualities of our how we pay attention via the other functions. So first slot function implies 4, 5, and 8. Second slot function implies 3, 6, and 7. So when we say, well, do you really have 8 functions? Well, yeah, there are 8 possible ways for people to pay attention. Well, do I pay attention in 8 ways? Well, you have some relationship with each of the 8 ways of paying attention, because the ways of paying attention are prioritizing mia instead of mia in every instance, right? So I've got a lot of like stout, reliable explanations like that, but they don't provide certain kinds of information that sometimes people are seeking. So do I believe that people can use shadow functions? People don't use any functions. People pay attention in certain ways. And we can only understand correctly expressions of valuing, for example, by referencing these functions, because that's the correct and naturally implied taxonomy of a survey of all metacognitable instances of human cognition. So it's like, it's incorrect to say that I'm using my TI right now. It's more correct to say that the way I'm paying attention right now provides you an answer to the question you asked, that instead of answering it yes or no, correctly articulates the flawed underlying assumption. Taxonomy tax. Thanks, Ike. Wow, $50. What a fancy day today is for me.
Wow. Thanks, Ike.
What if someone experiences SI and NI simultaneously? Well, I don't know. Not sure what that would look like. I mean, the thing is, the two ways of knowing aren't incompatible.
Oh, your tail.
What's going on, kitty? Is trouble bothering you, or is that something
I
else?
don't know. Maybe it was Dracula.
Do I have any plans? Well, I have vague intentions. How about that? I've got intentions. Do I have any plans? Planning is such an oppressive thing to do, isn't it? I like to call planning the tyranny of yesterday's ideas. You know, I think that's a pretty great way to describe planning. The tyranny of yesterday's ideas. Yeah, I've got stuff kind of in the works. The challenge for me is I'm never going to be satisfied until I do. Okay? Until I do make a book that explains everything that I want to explain in an optimal fashion. That's kind of the trick. I've tried to start articulating all this stuff in a book before. I have partials done But it's why it brings back right to the thing I was saying before, which is a good explanation is extremely hard to make. Because where do I start, right? With cognitive functions. Where in the world do I start? I know that part, sort of, in the sense that if I just wanted to bare bones articulate all of the specifics that I have done, like here's the skeleton outline of me, I know I already have that made, but then I need some sort of frame to present it to people who aren't necessarily. I mean, I have to start from scratch, right? Because even if people know about cognitive functions, who know about cognitive functions and reading the book, their knowledge isn't going to help. It's going to hurt because what they know is wrong. Is that a lizard? I think that's a little lizard. So I've thought about like starting it with the following framing. In fact, I've done some version of this. You know, get so many documents go, oh yeah, I made this. Oh yeah, I made that. Where I start with the frame saying, let's use as an analog for cognitive functions a model of the solar system. And let's reference this model of the solar system when understanding what it is we need our explanation to do if it's adequate as an explanation. So here's not an example of the solar system being modeled. Pluto's the farthest one away from the sun of all of our planets. That is not an example of the solar system being modeled. That's just stating some static fact about the solar system that is necessary to understand in order to model it, but is not itself a model. So when we're talking about typology, we need to remember that what we're not doing is writing type descriptions. ISFJs are like this because that's not modeling human consciousness. It's possible to write such stuff, but not only will that not help in our goal of modeling human consciousness, it will hurt in our goal of modeling it because it will misassign broad generalities to attentional manners in a way that makes people misunderstand what attentional manners are. So like when Renard whatever says, hey, I have an opinion as Renard, whatever my name is, I have an opinion about whether or not people use their unconscious functions. I'm an extrovert intuitor with introverted thinking as my tool function. So I pay attention predominantly at, or at least not even predominantly, but the nature of my attentional configuration is such that it limits, because I'm an action type, for example, it limits my relationship with knowledge to conscious weak, fourth slot, or unconscious, strongly valued, at least, fifth slot. And what that means is that if I'm going to be the least deliberative type as my nature, an action type, then I can't be very much of the most deliberative kind of type, a knowledge type. Actually, I guess deliberators are more deliberate. But but they're not more it's not the case that they are that they necessarily act sooner, right? So, yeah, you can be deliberative versus, which it takes a longer process to reach your epistemic conclusion than knowledge does. But it's also the case that if you're trying to know things, say, about a holistic system, then you have to wait a long time for all the pieces of relevant data, enough pieces of relevant data to fall into place for your intuition to collapse them all and say, aha, here I know this. So the actual outcome epistemologically does not necessarily happen faster for knowledge. I would not say that Rachel is more of an impulsive person than, say, an ISTP or an ISFP. She's got better SE than I in TPs and I in FPs, of course, but the point I'm trying to get at is that because I prioritized a form of action first, specifically communicative action, which puts information on the metaphysical rather than the physical field, that necessitates that I have deliberation as a tool function, because after all, to take action, especially the way I'm taking action, which is to say on the metaphysical field, but it's true for both actually, it's not especially for either one. I have to believe that I'm going to be able to decide everything before I take the action, complete the action without anything changing my decision that happened here or impacting it at all, and then reassess on the other side. On the other hand, if I'm engaging in interface, I don't have the capacity, the time to deliberate things because I'm interfacing with changing dynamic systems that require responsiveness in real time from both me and the other party, right? If I'm having a conversation with you, not like I'm doing right now where I'm explaining and ignoring the chat, but if I'm actually having a conversation with you in the real world, if it's actually a conversation, I'm listening to what you say, responding to what you say, you're listening to what I say, responding to what I say. I don't have time to sit silently after you're done speaking and deliberate out in full exactly what I think about it. So accordingly, if I'm interfacing with you and I'm an interfacing type, then I cannot have a deliberation function because I'm interfacing. So instead of deliberating the TI details about of what that person is saying, I'm knowing what I can pick up about their FE. That's much more knowable than, say, their argumentation, which has to be parsed out. There's nothing to parse. You just read their facial expression and go, oh, she's pissed, or whatever. You just know it. Or maybe, I've seen her look like that before. I know what this means. SI style knowing. So if you're interfacing socially, obviously you need to be real-time responsive and therefore know about what their social cues mean. If you're interfacing physically, then you need to be responsive to how your most recent meow changed the reality. Like, I turned this too hard and it broke. Well, and that's another trick of explanation that I got to attend to as well, which kind of highlights here is you want your explanation if it's going to be optimally rendered for both consumption and informativeness to hit a sweet spot. You want it to be broadly accessible, understandable by a large amount of people rather than a small amount of people. But you also have to acknowledge that there are going to be some people, probably because of anti-complementary, contraindicated function stacks who just aren't going to understand it because it requires a level of abstraction that they're not intentionally configured for. So there's a lot of tricky things to find the sweet spot on, and the you know finding the sweet spot of a cluster of sweet spots is requires even greater levels of ni deftness than that. So it's hard to pull off. It's hard to pull off ideally. It's it's hard to pull off even well. You're dealing with something that to be accurate and correct about requires you to articulate a lot of specifics and be pretty dry, and they're pretty dry, you know? It's difficult to keep that overhead view that lets you understand what you're doing and what kind of work is going on, etc. Does metaphysical action have something to do with quantum entanglement? I mean, not necessarily. Metaphysical action, I just mean instead of uh, throwing sticks from over there onto over there, I'm throwing words from over here onto over there. So that's the difference between physical action, digging a hole, and metaphysical action, digging you an argumentational grave. You know. Snap into a Slim Jim, everyone. Snap into a Slim Jim. Okay, well, what is your choice, admin? What's my choice of what? Am I choosing between velvet cake and yellow cake? I'll take yellow cake. Come in. Look, I am certainly, no doubt, guilty of using some terms you're not familiar with. Word salad is a term of art that means something specific. What it means is someone's using a lot of words but not expressing a distinct point that can be pinned down and tested in some fashion. I'm not guilty of word salad at all. I'm the only one who's almost never guilty of it in the typological community. Well, that's true, Taha. It's not SI resistance. I would call it SE resistance, right? Like 8 slot SE is I don't do things. I wait to discover that I'm doing things. I wait to notice that, oh, I'm doing that thing. How do U.S. citizens, U.S. do citizens have to register to vote? Yeah, it's register to vote because you have to say which party you want, whose primaries you want to vote for. There's a lot of reasons why you have to register to vote. It's to prevent people from vote fraud, a lot of things. It's easy to register to vote. Anytime you go to the DMV, you can register or re-register. It's free. It's basically impossible for you not to encounter multiple opportunities to register or re-register to vote all the time as you move through the world. You know, sometimes parties will have vote registration campaigns where they try to find anybody who's not registered to vote that they can convince to register to vote. So it's not a burdensome requirement, trust me. And I'm not one to be an apologist for needless red tape. I assure you that this is not one of those things. Well, I don't buy the notion that cognitive functions are usable while being wrong. And what I see is it's not imprecision. It's misinformation, disinformation, whatever you want to call it, or just ignorant wrongness. I don't know what else to call it, right? So if you look at C.S. Joseph, he's clearly a TE high up there somewhere. Um, he's wildly wrong about almost everything he says, you know? It's crazy. You look at Dave Superpowers. He invented his own crazy nonsense with hundreds of subtypes. Everything he said was wildly wrong. There's nobody who was helped at all by such incredible wrongness except helped to find the door out of this obvious cesspool of bullshit. I mean, it wasn't necessarily, I'm not saying like you wronged me by using it. I'm just saying it's incorrect to say that my words don't mean specific things. They absolutely do. It is the case that I would like to, I mean, I'm always striving to make my explanations more concise and NI have more NI snap, you know. But it's also the case that I want to be precise with my language and not be guilty of the muddying of the typological waters. So if TE people are helping people use typology in subjective ways to understand themselves as they want to understand themselves and maybe better their self-esteem or something, then that's moving away from typology actually being understood as a correct explanation that's informative about stuff. So to the extent that people want typology to be useful in their self-help shit, then they want it to be useless as an explanation. The thing is, of course, typology, if it could attain its correct rendering, and smart people would be willing to look at it for a second and think maybe this isn't just idiots flinging cesspool water at each other, then okay, once we've got people who are looking for the correct explanation on board that this is the correct explanation, then if you want to be wrong in your specific explications of it on your shit, that's fine, because there'll be consensus about what's correct. And there's plenty of things that people, there's quantum mechanics, and for every quantum mechanics actual scientist person, there's a million Deepak Chopras who are just flinging quantum woo. Now that's word salad, it's Deepak Chopra, right? So the thing is, and you'll note that Deepak Chopra's quantum woo does not harm actual quantum physics at all. That's the difference between stuff that's in scientific academic community and stuff that's philosophy. Because Dunning-Kruger is most rampant in philosophy. Everybody thinks they too can use words to say things about other things and be correct. They probably feel like, I have just as much right to be correct as that guy. Who's that guy? Because that's a very subjective frame of reference, right? It's like, this isn't about what's fair for us as individual people. It's about what's fair for everybody. That correctness be judged on its merits, not on the person's. But I get it. That's why I started giving up on typology more or less, because as an explanation, I've definitely given up arguing with people about typology until yesterday when, or the day before when I found it, and then they drag you back in because there's a minority of people who are equipped to both understand the explanation, recognize it for the powerful tool that it is, use it to good effect, etc. And such voices are drowned out by a din of hemphistry all around. The way I kind of view typology, it's like a library, and okay, there, we got all the books in the right spot. Now people can find the book they're looking for, and then okay, open the doors. Here comes somebody who's for some reason bringing a bag of books in, and that person starts taking books off of where they belong and putting them in some place else, or sometimes just replacing them with one of the books they brought in, and rendering the library entirely useless for everybody. That's how I view it, because after all, I've got all this cognitive functions just straightened away. But the thing is, I also understand that you don't know how many times I've cleaned up this same mess that you're making right now already. You know, and obviously you don't know that I've already explained all this on videos over and over and over again. From my perspective, it's like, how many times am I going to keep running into this same kind of person who, for some reason, comes into the library with their own books, not getting the fact somehow that this library is here to provide them with information, and it just wrecking everything again? Well, the answer is it seems impossible, but none of those people who keep coming to the library and doing this are colluding with each other, know each other. It's just there's just a shit ton of people like that in the world, and they don't even know they're doing anything wrong. They think they're helping improve the library. That's what makes me give up. There's not even anybody to blame, right? And in every other thing you can imagine, either it's complete bullshit, or if you do more research, you'll understand it more clearly. In typology, the more research you do, the less clearly you understand it, unless you're only researching me. I find it a bang my head against the wall exercise, right? Because it's even worse than teaching school. Because even though the kids in school might be making zero effort to learn what you're trying to teach them, they're also not making any effort to assert that they already know what you're trying to teach them better than you do. So it's kind of like if I were trying to teach a class and I had to stop every couple of minutes and allow a student to stand up and explain what they thought, why they thought that in fact the noun clause was not a noun clause in the sentence, but was instead an adjective. And then the next kid would get up and say, Mr. Strauss, I want you to know that I get it. You're going to feel a little bit distressed emotionally by what I'm about to say. But I just want you to know if you're keep an open mind, you'll see, I think you'll agree with me because I'm going to really make a good argument to prove it here. That now, what you call a noun clause is actually a prepositional phrase. So hear me out. First of all, how are you feeling right now? I think you're feeling sad. I mean, I have many such documents, come man. Do I have I could share one with you now that articulates at least the outline of the architecture of things. But do I have a complete book? No. The thing is, come man, I'm not asking anybody to agree that I'm so right because I recognize the fact that they have no idea that I'm so right. That what appears to me a pattern of behavior is not this new person's problem. They have no idea that this has happened a million times before. They have no idea that I already have myriad videos explaining this, but I don't know exactly which one to point them to because, some maybe the best explanation of it I've ever given is in the middle of some live stream. I don't know. I got so many fucking videos, right? They don't get that. They don't know that I've done this dance a million times. They don't get that this isn't the first time I've heard of socionics. They don't mean to insult me. Why should they know that much about me, Oh, I mean, I get it, Con Man 3. I know. It would be useful to me too. Then instead of trying to explain things ever, I just say, here, I have the best explanation I'm ever gonna make right here. It's as perfect as I can get it. That'd be wonderful. Read your last message. John Green says he just got a notification that Insider hyphen, but mostly in my mouth, has just been accused of insider trading. That is shocking news. It's actually though you got the name wrong. It's is everywhere, but mostly in my mouth. Okay, so first name Yerk. Yerk, is everywhere, hyphen, but mostly in my mouth. Really made a poor choice when they not only decided to marry Mr. but mostly in my mouth, but also chose to hyphenate their names. The end is in sight. Death comes eventually. Temporal teleporter, that's not helpful. That is definitely not helpful. Well, the reason you were trying to understand it first last is because he got the name wrong. That's all right. I do that sometimes too. I do that shit sometimes. Jonathan Earl is that thing past which none of us can see. It's the giant ice wall that surrounds the flat earth. Yeah, Lemon? Well, you know what I think it is? I think It's that you find that this is not necessarily always about typology. So you could call it a personality channel, you wouldn't be wrong. But there are plenty of live streams that I talk almost not at all about typology, you know? First class, I went productivity. I may come back to personality for a bit, but I haven't done it in a year. Well, you sound like the kind of person the rest of us are jealous of. Are you getting things accomplished and such? Do you have a vision? Are you able to follow through and get it done? What is wrong with you? Instead of there being something wrong with the rest of us, I think we should say something wrong with people who do have self discipline, vision, and follow through. Do I like Kamala Harris? No, I don't. Well, Jonathan Earl, I understand that argument as well. Like, there's clearly some energy that animated this body that was there before that's no longer there. The natural question to ask is, where did it go? But you could say the same thing about a car when it runs out of gas. There appeared to be some energy making this car go before that's no longer here. Where did it go? Well, it just all got burned up. I know. I would never vote for Kamala Harris because she was a prosecutor and you know, one of just incredibly unprincipled, an incredibly unprincipled, wicked person, lacking an introvert intuition. It's like whoever, for whatever other reasons you might have for liking Kamala Harris or whatever, you wouldn't excuse it if she were a concentration camp guard, you know? Prosecutor is not obviously, I mean, in some sense, it's worse because you're the one making decisions. Yeah, sure, Alexis. I mean, I've had millions of people say to me, you know, I could work with you on this. And I say, I mean, if I could find somebody who actually would be the stuff I'm not, like have a schedule and say, let's get this done by this, or let's get this done this day, or let's meet on this time, I would eat that shit up. I've never had anybody actually be that, though. Everybody around here tends to be useless people like me. You maybe not, though, Alexis. You did such a competent job of convincing me that Jordan Peterson was an ENFJ that you might just be capable of anything. Even creating real life Smurfs. Wouldn't it be crazy if humans could genetically engineer real live Smurfs? I see him over there, it'd be like Papa Smurf and Smurfette and Brainy. Little blue guys like this big. Hey Smurf, what's going on? Well, I'm Brainy Smurf. Yeah, I know you're Brainy. Get out of here. You guys, you goofs, you always make me smile. Smurfette, you hoe! What are you doing? It's Gangbang Thursday. Did the scientists know the Smurfs were going to turn out like this when they made them? Did they know what absolutely debauched, barbaric fuck things they are? I have to constantly shield my children's eyes as we walk past the Smurfs that have clearly become an invasive species and taken over all of our parks and woodlands. It turns out they're not just promiscuous, they're fertile as well. Smurfette is, and all the other Smurfettes that are born. For each group of like 30 Smurf males, there's one Smurfette born. Each group of 30 males, not all the groups are the same. Like that one group that we know has Brainy and Papa Smurf. Other group might have like Smarty and Uncle Smurf, But every Smurfette is exactly the same. An extremely fertile, filthy slut. I will tell you though, she regrets those high heels later in life. My grandma did. My grandma had horrible foot problems later in life. She was a pharmacist, and also it was like way back in the day. I don't know if she was expected to wear heels or she chose to, but her feet were just they they were a constant source of pain for her at the end of her life. Last, I don't know, 5 years or so, 10 years maybe. Ladies, women, chicks, girls, I have a suggestion for you. Don't wear high heels. It's dumb. I'm sorry. I'm gonna just say it right now. If you're wearing high heels, get your head out of your ass. It's a dumb thing to do. They're not comfortable, they don't look good, and they hurt your feet. Like, not just uncomfortable hurt them, but damage them, as per my grandmother. You wouldn't want to be a Chinese woman who had to bind her feet so that she could walk all daintily, would you? Well, high heels are the Western equivalent of that. Don't wear them. And that's how Eric mansplains shoes to women. You're welcome, ladies. You are welcome. It always makes you feel a little more safe to know that a man's wisdom is there to help. Oh, likely story, Diamond. That sounds like somebody who's looks Maxine. Are you mogging the other ladies? Is that what you're doing, Diamond, with your high heels? Is there a baldy Smurf? In some of the Smurf groups, yes. I'm not a famous person, Notorious Nugs, and we don't currently have any actual celebrities here that we talk to or that we've ever talked to, really ever. But fingers crossed. Maybe someday. Men didn't wear high heels. That's not true, is it? I've got the Tommy slippers. The front of them is exactly the same height as all the rest of them. So there's zero heel action on this, not even any arch support. Well, okay, but like shoes that have like a thick bottom part they're called lifts, I think. I don't believe that comprises a heel because it's not making their foot at an angle. It's still regular flat, it's just higher up. I'm a dandy, Diamond. I am flamboyant, but not at the expense of the health of my precious feet. All right? So that's where I draw the line. My grandmother was not Chinese. No. My grandmother was, I'm guessing, fluidly transracial like me, but I don't remember actually determining that ever. Even in my flamboyance, I guess it's true that like in the 70s when there was this whole kind of gender bending Ziggy Stardust thing, probably had some rock stars wearing heels, but I don't think like Here we see footage of New York from the 1930s. All the men in their top hats and walking canes and high heels strutting down First Avenue. Where are you from? I am from Mariposa, California, United States of America, Earth, solar system, yeah, Milky Way, universe. How much elevation should I use in a shoe? 9,000 feet. Higher than that, you're subject to altitude sickness. Some people even get it between 8 and 9,000 feet, but I think you're probably safe under 9,000 feet. Oh, you emailed me. Where is this, like, follow through, actually do shit stuff? Like, who is this person? You don't belong around here. We aren't useful people around here. Or you offered YouTube organization help. I thought you were talking about working on a document for cognitive functions. But let's have a Google Meet, okay? And then we can talk about what might be done or if we want to do anything or whatever. We can talk these things out. Yeah, we can schedule it for as little as 15 minutes if you want it to be super focused and purposeful. Whatever. But just send me a day and time. A day and time, not today. I'm getting pretty tired at this point. Send me a day and time you want to meet. And I'll send you a calendar invite. A calendar invite. Ini is lame. Ini is cool. You know what? I'm sorry, Jane North trash, but it's kind of the other way around. Let's face it. Ini is cool, and Ini's just some dork nah, 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 in his live stream. And I'm going to just admit it. That's right. I've formally decided to reclaim the term dork from my oppressors. I embrace it now, okay? Yeah, maybe I am a dork, okay? That's okay. It's fine. I'm just differently dorkled. There's no more reading there. Don't you hate it when you're watching a good episode of an anime and then it ends and you realize you have to wait till next week? I do. I'm Andy Rooney. Everybody's a dork. People think you're disabled. Is it because you push yourself around in a wheelchair? I can understand why they would think that. I'm surprised you choose to fool them in that fashion. Wow, look at that. You must like have a job or something, huh? You're good at being on top of shit. Look at this person, everybody. She has a job. Okay. Let's do 10 a.m. tomorrow. I'll put it on the calendar. Put it for 45 minutes. Doesn't have to go that long, obviously. Tomorrow. It's always a day away. until tomorrow, at least, in which case it's today. All right. Let's see. Lady Pants, Alexis, meaty, meeting. Okay, now add a guest. Oh, I screwed up. I should have copy and pasted your email when I was at my email. Now I have to reopen it and go get it. That's bad TE on my part. There's an order of operations here, Eric. You gotta copy and paste the email address before you close that tab. Tyranny of ordinated tasks. Listen, reality, I'm going to rebel. I'm not going to obey you. I'm not going to copy the email address first. Therefore, I win. No, says reality, I still win because you're just going to have to go back and do it again less efficiently. And then I say, damn you, TE, you win again. So it is with me and TE. You want to do some SE in a second? We could do some SE. You want to know what I have in mind? I don't know. We'll see if you guys are adventurous enough to be up for this, but I'm thinking about maybe going up to the street and getting these trash cans and bringing them back down here. Because the trash man took away the trash from inside the trash cans. They're empty currently. It's something I need to do. You know, might as well check off an SE point box and get that done. The shish kebab is yours? Struggling to make the calendar invite is crazy. I didn't struggle to make it, okay? I just forgot to copy the email address before I went back there. Oh, really? Oh, is your channel called Goals? G, goals. O, only goals. A, all goals. L, love goals. S, seriously, goals. I do. I mean, one of my goals is to know what my goals are. That's my number one goal, is to know what my goals are. That would really help a lot. And, okay, to both know what my goals are and to make them stay put. Without sacrificing any of the planning free whimsy. I'm just kidding. I expect to there to be a little bit of structure. If I'm accomplishing anything of any value, I'm sure there must be some structure involved somehow. I mean, I'm assuming it's FI determines as I guess you'd say, goal district, and then maybe NI narrows down and defines the precise like path or like the two dots that you're going to go between, and then TE figures out how to get between them. Make a list of goals. I don't need more goals, I need fewer. Goals are like balls you're juggling in the air. If you have more than three, you just have balls sitting on the ground. Obviously, what I want. You mean like wild sense? Wild success in all directions. Is that a well articulated enough goal? We're not just thinking in terms of YouTube goals. Mm, okay. I want to replace Mr. Beast as YouTube's #1 channel. There. Someone get in contact with YouTube and inform them that's my plan. Tell them to facilitate me however they can. Do I want YouTube growth? Well, like, I don't know what to do with the reality of numbers on YouTube. Like, for example, lately, what is in like less than last week, but after a dip in live stream numbers, my numbers have gone back up somewhat. I don't know why. It could be any number of things. Concurrently, in the last month, I have gone down to 29 subscribers in the last month, which averages one a day. During the peak of when they were promoting vertical streaming, I was getting, in just a few months, I don't know exactly how long, I went from like 9,000 subs to like twice as many. So I was getting a lot of subs a day. There were plenty of days when I was getting 100 subs a day. Interestingly, the views were not necessarily that much better when I was getting a lot more subs, but it's all just very, I don't know what to make of it. That's the bottom line. I just don't know what to make of it. Like, if somebody were to look at my analytics, I think they'd probably just think there doesn't really seem to be any rhyme or reason to it, particularly. Certain kinds of videos, you can predictably expect them to get this kind of response. But live streams, much less predictability. Since the start of 2024. Before that, they were predictably pointless. I got no new subs or anything like that. Well, yeah, but I think you should call those 2, 3, and 4. The video did well yesterday because one, it was a good video. Why was it a good video? Because A, I was super thwacked out towards the outset of a bottle. So the detail work and the editing didn't bother me much. Two, it was an authentic response that I initially tried not to make any kind of response to that because except just, I don't even know where to begin. Thanks for the comment. So I put in my reply to his comment. And then it was making me. I was trying to watch cartoons, but I kept thinking about that guy that has. So, it doesn't matter how SEO'd it is. If it sucks, nobody's going to watch it. That one was entertaining also because of the horriblest of reasons. I said more or less nothing and just emoted the whole time. Emoted my indignant disbelief at this idiocy, you see how complicated it is? Like, I could get great amount of views with making shorts if I just followed this formula that I discovered. Find a construction vehicle of some sort, like a bulldozer or whatever, a steamroller or something, one of those yellowish orange things, and take a 8-second long video of you saying, oh my gosh, I wonder what this part of this machine does. You'll get 5,000 views and multiple people explaining it to you. Well, that's true, Alexis, is that it doesn't matter how good a video is, if the click-through rate is weak enough, it's not going to get promoted by YouTube much. You know, it's not going to get very, it's not going to stay on people's recommended for very long. And ultimately, it's like, that's true of every specific video on YouTube. It's a confluence of factors. Like even creators who do get consistently strong views on their videos and such. Like I've seen it plenty of times. Like Tech Realm's the best example I can think of, where he started that thing having fun, just being like, I think I understand YouTube really well, and I think I can make this channel huge super fast. And in fact, he set records and stuff for like first fastest to 1 million, stuff like that. At the time, I don't think he is anymore. I think he still has that record. But the point is, then he was like, okay, well, what am I going to make now? He tried making different kinds of things. Some of which I actually liked better, and it's more popular content. But his channel just like went dormant, dead, in the sense that I didn't notice I wasn't being recommended Tech Realm videos anymore until one day I was again, you know? And then I went back to that channel and did some catching up. So now he's releasing videos of the kind that get him the most action. I trolled this scammer on the phone and made them think that I meow. Well, you know how long it took me to get monetized, Alexis? Not even 1 second. They monetized me the second I signed up for YouTube. They're like, oh, we really like you, Eric. We're going to monetize you right away. Because when I started YouTubing, everybody was monetized. There weren't any non-monetized channels. All you had to do was click a button that says, yes, monetized. And like, you know, fill out some paperwork or something. You didn't have to meet any standards to get monetized. So, while I did get monetized a lot faster than you, I can't really take credit for that. Instantaneous is as fast as you can get it. I remember when I made like my first half of a cent. And it took a long time from that to get all the way up to 1 full penny. Now, you know how much money I make on YouTube? It's amazing. In the 10 years, I've gone from 1 cent a month to nearly $100 a month. That's right. Currently, my income from YouTube ads and stuff is in the high 90s of dollars. So, obviously, I'm living pretty high on the hog. I've got 90 some extra dollars this month to just splurge on whatever. And all I have to do is spend almost all of my time doing this. It's just that simple. It's just that simple to get rich on YouTube. Simply spend all of your time doing this, and you too can make upwards of tens of dollars. You earned 31p? What are p's? Is that pence? 31 pence? Well, it makes sense, Alexis. It sounds like you had a goal of making money. You know what I learned just not very long ago? Was kind of shocked that I did not know this. Once you get to 100,000 subscribers, you get paid a substantially higher rate for everything. So it's like, if you're like, I could be at 99,000 subs, right? And I might still be making under $1,000 a month. And then I get to 100,000 subs, and all of a sudden I'm making $10,000 a month. That's I had no idea that's how it worked. Did you? Did anybody know that? I found that out the other day watching a YouTube video. Somebody was explaining it. Yeah, it's true. I had no idea. Check it out. I mean, you can verify this true. I trust the source. I think it was Tiger Realm. He's the biggest YouTube expert there is. If it was Tech Realm, I trust the source. But verify, I just take it on faith that he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I have. I liked it. I like Viral Hit. The problem with the book is neither publishing nor writing it. It's making it good. It's very easy to write a bad book. I've got many of them started, at least, in my documents. I don't know how many failed starts to books I have in there. More than you can count on one penis, that's for sure. I mean hand. You could only count one on one penis. Unless you have a multi-segmented penis, I guess. Wouldn't that be weird if your penis had little fingers on the end of it? A little thumb. Otherwise, you had a perfectly normal penis, but you had to scale fingers and a thumb coming out of it. First lady's like, oh, ew, what is that? I'm like, just wait and see. You are going to be amazed at what I can do to your cervix. Really? Just come here, girl. But you can move those fingers? They're as dexterous as my actual hands. Wow. Okay. Oh my God. I was a real downer at first, but you are right. Hand penis is amazing. Maybe he's got a little face on the palm of his penis hands too. But it's just like birthmarks, Some freckles or something. In the form of two eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Well, you're right about that, Coneman 3. You are right about that. Because to get the structure right means you have to pick the right frame. For it to be the right frame means most everything else in it has to link back to the frame. And it also means the frame's got to encompass sufficient ground to cover everything necessary, but not require anything unnecessary so you don't get needlessly dense and bore the shit out of everybody. Is that where finger rings come from? Oh, I see. Not finger rings. Fingerings. You mean guitar fingerings, I'm assuming, right? No, actually. People have created guitar fingerings with their into the arms fingers. God damn it. That's it. Put them up, you old goat. Let's dance. I'm dancing. I'm dancing. Now you go. Are we having like a break dancing dance off? Ooh, yeah. I'm break dancing. Raver. They call old people like me who have any raverish qualities gravers. Because we're about to die, you see. I want everyone to say, you know what? There's actually an intellectual pundit type or whatever on YouTube that's not gonna pan out as a flash in the pan disappointment as per your various alt-right whatevers that don't play out to actually be correct about things or fail and fall short in some other fashion. There's an actual person who's actually correct about things, who will pontificate on these things and not be wrong. But what you don't get is you don't get to have him stoke your little outrage fire by boogeymanning the groups that you hate. So, learn to be an audience for something you don't like. Namely, my form of correctness. That can't be your goal, Eric. You can have a goal for other people to consume what they don't like, and yet somehow it is. I don't know, Alexis. I haven't had any time to think about this before our meeting tomorrow. Is that what I'm supposed to be doing now? I tell you what I want. I want to not have to find people to listen to me explain stuff to. I want people to come trying to contact me. Please come here and explain this to me. And then I'll go on the YouTube channel and I'll explain it. And I'll get so many views. And everyone will be like, this was good, not because I like Eric, but because he's so correct. Is that too specific? That's what I think it's good to have specific goals, right? I've come to see the error of my previous ways. I used to think I liked bullshit thinkers like Jordan Peterson who were really just jiggling my outrage testicles, but now I know better. And what I really like is Eric, who scolds me for my wrongness. What would you like to watch tonight on television, honey? Can we watch Eric scold us for being wrong? Oh, you want to get scolded, huh? Yeah, me too. That sounds fun. Let's do it. Want to call over Bob and Jane? See if they want to get scolded too. Yeah, let's do it. I love Jane and I. We just learn so much when he explains to us how dumb we are for believing what we believe. I know. I cannot believe we made it this late in life before we discover this guy, because I've never encountered media that is this compellingly desirable for me to consume. Wait, I'm wrong about something else? And you're going to be like smug and pedantic and kind of condescending and explaining it to me? Please, could you just continue this forever? I have an unending appetite for exactly this kind of content. Well, how convenient for you. I have 3 role models. You know, I was thinking of somebody the other day. I was like, there's a role model. Oh, I know. Okay, 1 role model. The guy in Africa who got the job as the sign language interpreter, even though he didn't know any sign language. He's a personal hero of mine. And who, when called upon to translate into sign language, just made up random shit. Okay, that guy is definitely a big hero of mine. Who else is a role model? Another role model. Oh, David Berlinski. He's correct, okay? He doesn't spew a bunch of bullshit. He's fairly famous, but unfortunately, well, you know, he's correct about evolution, which is what you mostly hear about him talk about. Unfortunately, the reason you mostly hear him talk about that is because he's basically been co-opted by creationists, even though he's not making creationist arguments at all. Oh, I mean that's the pundit I, I'd like to think I'm most like, the pundit I respect most, but not a pundit whose YouTube presence I'd like to emulate. Well, goals aren't better when they're more unique. Goals are better when they're more clearly understood. So Alexis is trying to gain clearer understanding of my goals by finding out somebody whose career I'd like to have. Well, I mean, I would love to have an enthusiastic young demographic of viewers of the sort that Jordan Peterson had, but for kind of a practical reason, if I were to garner even a tenth of the audience that that guy at one point commanded, I would be extremely well positioned to actually run for president and win. Because then you have a motivated grassroots young demographic of Americans to launch a campaign with the support of, you know. I do have, to be, I guess, most straightforward about things, I do have a goal of trying to get to 100,000 subs with the thought that there would be sufficient visibility to make a presidential campaign at least have enough hint of legitimacy that you could conceivably get some other media outlet to interview you, write an article about you, whatever, right? You have to have you have to have somebody to at least be taken seriously when you try to like book speaking engagements and stuff like that, right? Even if I wanted to do it as whistle stop as it could possibly be done, I need a certain level of legitimacy in other people's eyes for reasons other than merit. Because people don't prioritize merit very much. I don't want to be in politics, okay? I want to win the presidency, do my best to fix the country for the 4 years I plan to be in office, and then retire knowing that at least I did good work on the way that we talk to one another politically, and at least I did a thorough scolding about the habit of boogeymanning, those darn mugity meows, which is far worse in almost every instance than whatever those darn mugity meows are advocating or did. Get shot in the ear. That's funny, comment. I like that. Good job. Good joke. No, I don't want to get shot in the ear. I don't want to get shot into anything. Okay? I'd like to be entirely bullet wound free. Little bugs. There's too many bugs out here. Back inside. I think I'll probably wrap this up pretty soon. Seems like Rachel went back to bed. Bed's upstairs, bread's downstairs. I'm not sure I'm going to quite be ready to go to bed right now, but I do think that I'm ready to settle into some television and a little bit of Monday afternoon relaxation. I mean, the thing is, I want personality to be part of it. It's not possible in some level to make the substantial corrections that I'd like to make to the status quo understanding of things without including some reference to the correct model of human consciousness. But that's a much more vaguely articulated goal than, say, attaining a political office. I feel as though if there were a market for ideas that people should hear because it will empower them intellectually to understand things better, well, that would be great. But there are certain people who will never be in that market because it's in their attentional deficit areas. There's some people who will never be in that market because it's not in a deficit necessarily, but it's instrumentally or countervalued. So you're looking at a relatively small population of people who can actually even attain the thing that I claim provides what I offer value. I know, you don't want to hear me problem admire, Alexis. I could spend forever explaining to you how no particular answer to any of your questions is adequate. That probably you're not going to find very helpful. You're not going to find me being very helpful if I'm doing that, right? So, regardless, I'm going to wrap this up today, and this will give me a chance to think about the things you've asked me here more this evening and stuff. And maybe I'll have a better answer for you tomorrow. The paper mache class is just coming to an end, so I will have to see you all in tomorrow's paper mache class entitled Paper Mache 2, the next class. Bye and good night. And good luck.